What's that one thing, that one dream or goal that you know if you could just get started and stick with it, that you could finally find the happiness, fulfillment, and satisfaction that you know is on the other side of sticking with and getting that goal? And you may wonder why you just haven't gotten started. If this thing is going to bring you so much happiness and fulfillment and satisfaction, why haven't you made the change? You may think that you just need more time. You need to figure out how to be more productive. Or you may think, I just need a little bit more motivation to get started. And so maybe you think that you need some motivation tips. But you don't need either of those things. What you need is a system for getting the important things done. And that's what this book right here promises to do. This book promises to help you close the execution gap. And here's what the authors have to say about execution. The number one factor holding people back from achieving what they are truly capable of is not a lack of knowledge, intellect, or information. The barrier standing between you and the life you are capable of living is a lack of consistent execution. So you don't need more information, you don't need another YouTube video. What you really need is a way to consistently execute on the thing that you want. So this book is split into two parts. The first part really talks about why the system works, how it works, the headspace that you need to be in order to use this system. And then the second part is more of the nuts and bolts, how to really set up your own 12-week plan. And I've been using this for the last 6, almost 7 weeks. And it's been a really great way to focus, to really buckle down and focus on my goals, but it's also held up a mirror to all the areas where I could use a little improvement and the areas where I'm holding myself back from hitting my own goals as well. And so I'm going to be covering my takeaways and my highlights from the book and showing you how you can set up your own 12-week plan as well. So why a 12-week year? Why set up a system around achieving your goals in 12 weeks? Well, the authors took inspiration from observing the end of the year, the last quarter of the year, and they observed that people really had that last push. They were really motivated. They got a lot more done. They got most of the work done in the last quarter of the year with that end of year motivation and push to get things done than they did in the whole year, and that really inspired the course of this book. So one of the first things that this 12-week planning system can help you do is to develop a sense of urgency. When you have a whole year to get your goal done, there can be this sense of having a lot of time, and it's easy to kind of kick the can down the road and say that you'll do something later. But when you only have 12 weeks, every week counts. If you miss a week, then you're really setting yourself behind on hitting your goal. Another thing that this system does is it helps you predict with certainty the actions that you will need to take. When you have 12 weeks, it's easy to know what you'll need to do in the next 12 weeks to hit your goal. When you have 12 months, it's pretty hard to know with some level of certainty the actions that you'll need to take 11 months from now in order to hit your goal. Things can change by then. And here's my own take on this. When you know exactly what you need to do, when you have that certainty, that's really motivating. There's no excuses. There's no way to procrastinate. You know exactly what you need to do. But when there is some uncertainty, for myself, I can see that I would use that uncertainty as an excuse, as a way to procrastinate, as a way to somehow not do what I need to do in that moment. Another core piece of this system is that you are focusing on 1 to 2 growth areas over a 12-week period. And this focus allows you to have way more progress in 1 to 2 areas than you would if you were spreading yourself too thin. And for me, when you have focus, you start to see more results, and results are motivating. So this can become a self-reinforcing cycle. The fewer things that you're working on, the more you can focus, the more you can get done, and the more progress you make on those 1 to 2 things. Conversely, if you're spreading yourself too thin, then you see a little bit of progress kind of across the board, but nothing really jumps out and nothing really feels like you've really made a breakthrough or transformed that area of your life. And that can also be demotivating. When you're not seeing that progress and you're not seeing those results, it's hard to stay motivated. Results create motivation. And I'll pop on the screen an example of my old habit tracker from my old planner. And I used to be trying to track like at least 8 habits. And what would happen is that I just wouldn't be able to be consistent on them every day. And so you can see that I would have a bunch of green where I did them, but I also had a bunch of red because it was just too many things. I was trying to start up too many new habits all at once. And all that red on the planner is really demotivating for me. Whereas if I had had like 2 habits and I was able to execute them near perfectly and I had a bunch of green in my planner, that would be way more motivating for me personally. And one of the things that I've taken away from this book is that success is a combination of critical actions and consistent implementation. So you have to identify the most important actions to reach your goal and then consistently execute on them. And so if you aren't seeing the success that you're hoping to see, you need to look at both sides of that equation. The first being, have I identified the right actions to be taking to reach my goal? So for me, it's like I want to grow this YouTube channel. So what do I need to do? I need to post videos. That's probably the most important first step when it comes to growing a YouTube channel. And so let's say I was just spending all my time, on community posts or something like that, but I wasn't really posting actual video content. I would be focusing on the wrong things. The other side of that equation is consistent execution. If I want to grow a channel, I need to consistently upload. I can't just upload once a quarter. That could grow a channel. It'll be slow. And so for my goals, or especially if I had a 12-week plan, I need to focus on consistent execution. And so if you're not seeing the type of results that you want, you need to look at both sides of the equation. Have you identified the most critical tasks, and are you consistently executing them? So what does this system really look like? I'm going to pop up on the screen my take on what this system looks like. We're going to go through it as an overview. And then later in the video, I'm going to jump into the details of how you can set up your own 12-week plan. So it all starts with an emotionally compelling long-term vision. This is the reason why behind everything that you're doing. This is the reason why you're going to get uncomfortable in the actions that you take, and you're going to push through and have that motivation to push through when things get tough, when things get uncomfortable. And here's what the authors have to say about discomfort. Without a compelling reason to choose otherwise, most people will take comfortable actions over uncomfortable ones. The issue is that the important actions are often the uncomfortable ones. So you know how we were talking about that success equation before? All those critical actions are those uncomfortable actions that you're going to need to take in order to create something new. If the actions were familiar and comfortable, then you'd be doing them already. What makes them different is that they're uncomfortable, and that's how you create the change. So from your long-term vision, it gets translated into a more tangible 3-year vision of what a great life could look like in 3 years from now. Your 3-year vision is then translated into a 12-week plan. This is what you want to get at the end of 12 weeks and what you're willing to do in order to get that outcome. And from there, the 12-week plan informs your weekly plan. Your weekly plan has the daily or weekly things that you need to do in order to achieve your goal. And the last piece of this system is process control. This is how you stay on track and keep yourself accountable as you go week by week through your plan. And the authors remind us that long-term results are created by the actions you take every day. So what you do today, what you do right now, is what creates your future. In my case, in the example I did with my YouTube channel, the things I do today are what help me create a video every week. And the video that I put out every week is ultimately what will grow my channel and create where this channel is in the future. So we're going to get into how to create your 12-week plan in a bit, but first I want to go through the mindset or character traits that you need in order to see success with this system, because without the mindset, you're not going to implement this system. You're probably going to fall off track at some point, or you're just not going to see the results that you're hoping to see. And so mindset is just as important as the nuts and bolts of how you actually use this system. And so I really recommend that if you're interested in trying out this system, that you get your hands on a copy of the book, read it through so that you can really hear in the author's own words the way that they talk about taking accountability and being interested and really taking ownership over your goal and your ultimate outcome and success. And you don't need to go out and spend money on this book if you don't want to. Most public libraries that you can get a free library card for will have this book. So you can always try it out for yourself for free. That's what I like to do before I buy a book. I like to get a copy from my library, go through it myself, and decide if I like the book and I really want to have a physical reference, then I'll go and buy the book later. So the first kind of mindset that you need to embrace is this idea of intentional imbalance. And that's what we talked about earlier in the video, where you need to intentionally focus on 1 to 2 areas of your life rather than trying to grow across the board. And by doing this, you can really make progress in 1 or 2 areas. And once you're kind of at that next level, you've had that breakthrough or that transformation in that area of your life, that becomes the new norm. So you are able to maintain at that level as you set your sights on another area of life. The next thing is really about being committed to your goals. You have to be committed rather than just interested, because if you're just interested, yeah, it would be nice. Yeah, I'd kind of like dabble and maybe we'll get that done. That's not going to get you through those hard times. That's not going to get you through when you're feeling uncomfortable or when you just don't want to do it. And you really do need to stick with it and have that consistent implementation in order to see the results. And here's what the authors have to say about commitment and interest. When you're interested in doing something, you do it only when circumstances permit. But when you're committed to something, you accept no excuses, only results. And so this is that idea of like, let's say you want to run a 5K. If you're interested and the weather is beautiful out, yeah, you're going to get outside and you're going to train consistently. But if the weather turns rainy or cold and you're just interested, you're probably going to press snooze or just stay in and not go run when it's cold or rainy or whatever. But when you're committed, circumstances do not control your outcomes. You're committed, so you're doing it no matter what. The next thing is accountability and ownership. You are the only person that is accountable for this. You have to take self-accountability in order to get this done. And that goes hand in hand with owning your results, owning that your actions create your results. And no one can really keep you accountable except for you. And the authors say in the book that there's really no accountability other than self-accountability. And in the book, the authors talk about how accountability isn't about looking for fault or pointing fingers. It's really just saying, like, this is what happened. What do we need to do to improve? If we fell short, what do we need to do next time in order to get there? And here's what they have to say. Accountability is not concerned with fault, but rather what it takes to create better results. And so if you fall short for a week or something like that, then taking accountability is really looking at, where did I fall short? What happened? Where did I let things slip? And how am I not going to do that next week? How am I going to be accountable for my results and work to improve from here? Another trait that will lead to success is intentionality. And so this is really being intentional around my time and my actions, and I'm going to intentionally do the things and set aside the time that it takes to make this goal happen. And I'm not going to be at the whims of things that pop up. I am going to make my goal a priority, and I'm not going to let things derail me as they pop up. And one of the things that the authors talk about here is that you can lump or time block time for setting aside time for those high value critical tasks that are going to make your goal happen. And you can also lump time together to do all the kind of low value tasks like responding to phone calls, responding to emails, or just general like to-do list items, and not letting those things run your day. Rather, you're going to be intentional and prioritize the things that are really going to bring you to your goal. And the next mindset to embrace here is to choose greatness in the moment. And this really has to do with doing things even when you don't want to. There's always going to be times when you feel motivated, you feel like doing it, and it's easy. But there's also going to be times when you just don't feel like it. And if you want to make the most of your 12-week year, it has to do with being great in the moment. And so the authors use this example of Olympic athletes. They get to the top, they get to the podium, they are the top athletes in the world. And if you think about them, they're going to be training all the time. And some days it's going to be easy. And some days they're going to have the alarm go off at 5 or 6 a.m. and they're not going to feel like it. They're human. They're just not going to feel like it some days. But the difference between them and people that don't get to the top, the people that aren't great, is that they get up when the alarm goes off. They choose greatness in the moment. And so that's something that the authors encourage us to do, is to be great in the moment and do the thing even if we don't necessarily feel like it at that time. So let's get started with how you can create your own 12-week plan. It all starts with visioning, and this can often be the hardest part or the most overlooked part or the part that you kind of skim over, but it's the most important part of creating a solid foundation for your plan, and you need an emotionally compelling vision. And so what goes into an emotionally compelling vision? Well, it's a vision of your life that is bigger than your life is now. And it's also something that is emotionally compelling. It connects to your values. It's just a future that you would really love to have. One of the reasons that it has to be bigger than your current life is because why would you do it just to have more of the same? Why would you go through all this effort if you're just going to have kind of a similar but slightly different result? No, it has to be bigger in your own estimation than your current life. And it also has to be connected to you emotionally. Otherwise, you won't really feel like there's a reason why. It doesn't connect to you. You don't have that intrinsic motivation. And here's an example to kind of get this down to reality. This is how I see it, is that all of us we all know that having $1 million would be nice. That is something that is bigger than our life currently. $1 million is probably more than, most of us are making. And so that would be great. That's definitely something that's bigger, but just thinking that would be nice isn't enough to motivate you to try to make $1 million. For most of us, we need an emotional reason behind it. So how do you take that one step further? It's okay, $1 million would be nice, but why would it be nice? What would it do for me personally? Or what would it do for my family or my community? How would I use that $1 million? Would I, pay off my mom's mortgage? Would I, take my family on amazing vacations? Would I donate to charity or buy a bunch of investment properties or something? We all have a different vision of what would make that $1 million meaningful, but you really have to tap into that next layer of, what makes it meaningful for you? And that's really where you start to get that motivation from that connection. And so the authors have a method to help you kind of start to think about what your dream or your vision could do for your life. And it's not to start thinking about how can I do this thing? The authors actually say that to get from impossible into possible, you need to start thinking about what if that really happened for me? What if that was my life? What if I made that change? What could happen? What would your life look like then? How much better would it be? And so this is something that I relate to as well when I was starting to think about quitting my stable, secure, well-paying 9-to-5 job to pursue self-employment. I really had to start asking myself, what if I actually did that? What would my life look like? What could happen if I really pursued this path in life? And so I could start to think about how much time I could take back. I would have control over my schedule, over my time. I would have the opportunity to work less and work from anywhere, potentially travel more. There's all these opportunities and these things that when you start asking yourself, what if I went for it? That gets really exciting. That's how you can start to get the creative juices flowing and start to think about what if? How much better could my life be if I pursued this thing that I'm thinking about? And so then once you're really getting into it, then you can ask yourself the question of how might I? And that gets you from possible into probable. You start to think about how it could be done and you're thinking, this is not only a possibility, but this is a probability. This could happen. I can see other people doing it. I can see how they're doing it, which means there's a way for me to do it as well. And from there, the more you stay in this state, or even if you start taking action towards it, then at some point it becomes a given. It's this is happening. I'm going to stay the course. And I can see that if I just stick with it, this is going to happen. So once you have that long-term vision, then you can break that down into a more midterm 3-year vision of what a great personal and professional life could look like 3 years from now. And here's what the authors have to say about this step. They say that typically passion comes from your personal life, so vision should balance personal and professional. And I really resonate with this. When I was wanting to quit my 9-to-5 job, the passion behind that really came from the changes that I could make in my personal life, because I really felt that at the time my personal life was kind of suffering because of my professional life and how drained and burnt out I was feeling from work. And so my vision of how my personal life could improve by changing my profession really motivated me. And I think that's motivating for a lot of people. Your job is there so that you can fund your great life and so that you can live your great life outside of the office and outside of work hours. And so it's really important to have a balance of both personal and professional aspirations. So using that 3-year vision, you then choose 1 to 2 areas of your life that you want to focus on for the next 12 weeks, and that becomes the focus of your 12-week plan. And so some of the characteristics of your 12-week plan is that they are measurable and time-bound and realistic, but a little bit of a stretch. So what are those 1 to 2 areas that you want to focus on in your life? And what are the goals that you want to reach in the next 12 weeks that are a realistic stretch from now? And so one of the examples that the authors gives in the book is that, like, let's say over the next 12 weeks, you want to lose 10 pounds. That can be your goal. It's specific, it's measurable, it's time bound. Those are all the things that you want, and it may be a little bit of a stretch for you. Another thing is, for me, for example, let's say over the next 12 weeks, I want to gain 1,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. That would be my specific measurable goal that is time bound to the next 12 weeks. So from there, once you kind of know what you want, then you can start to brainstorm all the things that you could do in order to make that happen. And the authors recommend, like, kind of just put it all down on paper. Just write down everything that comes to mind. And from there, you're going to identify the most important tasks or the most important things that you could do. The things that are going to really move the dial and get your goal done. And here it's really important to focus on the minimum number of things that you can do. Again, we don't want to get overwhelmed, we don't want to get bogged down, and we don't want to feel like we have an endless to-do list. You really want to identify those few critical tasks that will allow you to get your goal done. So for me, for my YouTube channel, for me, the most important thing is to post 1 video every week. And from there, that breaks down into all the different tasks. But for me, it's just one checklist on my to-do list. It's just one check item. So I know that, like, every day there's something that I need to be doing that is working towards that video, but I like to just have one checkbox. So maybe one day I'm just brainstorming and outlining. That's like one check. And then I'm writing the script or researching, that's another check. And then I'm, like, say, editing my script or refining it or whatever, that can be another check. And so, like, I have like one thing that needs to get done. Typically I take like 1 day to do each of these things, and that just helps me stay on track. And I really like how simple it is. I don't need a million to do things. It's nice to just have one, it's done. I've done it for the day, and I can move on to, the other growth area or whatever else that I'm focusing on. And so once you have those critical tasks, you write it as an action sentence. It starts with a verb. So it's like record video. Like, what will you do in order to get to your goal? So you want to write it down in a way that spells out the action that you are going to take. It's all about being action focused. So in my example, it could be like write script, edit script, record video. These are like actions that I will take each day. So once you have the list of actions in your 12-week plan, those get translated into a weekly plan. And so this is the things that you're actually going to be doing on a weekly or a daily basis to reach your goal. And so not everything that you do will be every day. And so that's why this plan is a combination of daily and weekly actions. For example, if you're training to run a 5K, you're probably not going to be running every day. That's not very good for you. Let's say you run 3 days a week. So that's going to be your weekly actions. And on the other hand, let's say for my example of the YouTube channel, let's say that I do like one task every day towards my video, then I would have like basically a daily checkbox towards creating a YouTube video every week. And the last thing to make sure you do is to include any one-time activities. Like if you were going to start going to a gym to train for a 5K, then you need to sign up for your gym membership, right? And so that's like a one-time activity that probably happens in week 1 of your plan, and then it isn't there in the rest of your plan. So the plan is typically going to be pretty repetitive, but there are going to be those kind of one-time things that do pop up. Okay, so let's get into process control, because this is really how you kind of keep it all together. This is how you keep the train on the tracks and you make sure that things aren't going sideways. So the authors recommend that you consult your vision and your plan at the start of every week and the start of every day. And this is not a lengthy process. At the start of the week, you may take 15 minutes to remind yourself of all the tasks you have for the week, remind yourself of your vision, your why. And then at the start of every day, you just look at, what are the tasks that I'm doing to work towards my goal today? The next really, really important part of process control is tracking your actions. You need to know if you're actually doing the things that you should be doing, and you need to track whether or not you're doing them. So for my example, I'm going to work on my YouTube video 7 days a week. I have a score out of 7 each week. Did I do it or not? And the authors also recommend having lead and lag indicators. So lead is the things that you're going to do. Like I'm going to write my script, I'm going to film and record my video. Those are the lead indicators. Those are the actions that I'm in control of. And then the lag indicators are the outcome. So that's like subscribers gained if I had a goal of gaining 1,000 subscribers. And so it's really important to measure both, because you're in control of the lead indicators and the lag indicators are less in your control. I'm in control of whether or not I upload every week. As far as how many people actually subscribe to the channel, that is less in my control. And so it's really important that you track the things that you're in control of as well. So part of process control is at the end of each week or every Monday, you review how well you did and you go from there. You plan accordingly. If you kind of fell off track a little bit, then you know what you need to do in order to get on track. And if you did really well, you know what a good week looks like. And the last thing that the authors recommend as far as process control is to attend a weekly accountability meeting, which they call a WAM. And this is just so that you can report back on your progress, how you did, how the week went. This is not for people necessarily to keep you accountable or to, say, oh, you did a bad job, you need to do better. This is just for you to check in and speak the truth of what happened. And one of the things that the authors say in the book is something like, data doesn't judge. And it's really just putting the facts on the table without judgment. It's just saying like, yeah, I only hit 50% of my things last week. It wasn't a great week. That's fine. I know what I need to do now to improve. And just remember what we talked about at the beginning of this video. Yes, you can report back to a group of peers or people that are doing this with you, but they ultimately can't keep you accountable. You need to keep you accountable because you're the only one that can show up and do the thing every day and every week. So let's get into some of the tips that I think are really important that the authors cover in the book for having success in working this system. So the first thing is that you should aim for 85% compliance. And the authors really say that in all their experience of working with people in this system, that if you hit 85% of the tasks that you need to do, that you will see your results and the success that you're wanting, and that you will really push yourself to reach your full potential if you hit at least 85%. And the authors do say that if you hit 60%, you'll probably still reach your goal, but you're not going to maximize your personal potential. Another really important thing to remember is not to change your plan until you've adequately implemented it. A lot of people can jump from thing to thing to thing, and they think they just need a new plan or a new strategy. But in reality, they're not properly implementing or consistently implementing the plan that they already have. And this is something I've talked about on the channel before. It's have you really given your plan the chance to work? Have you given it the time to work? Have you given it the commitment for it to work? Or are you just wanting to jump to something new? And so they really say, like, unless you're consistently implementing, don't switch your plan because it could be a perfectly fine plan and you're just not implementing it. Another thing that the measurement aspect of this system really brings into the forefront is that data is the honest truth and data doesn't judge. And so when you're tracking, you're really able to see the reality of the situation. And for me personally, this has been kind of an eye-opener when I felt like, yeah, I'm doing it. I'm mostly doing it. I'm, implementing the things and saying and doing what I said I would do. I had this general sense of like, yeah, I'm doing it. Like I miss a day here or there, but like in general, I'm doing it. But upon reflection and upon looking at the data, it showed me that, you are missing a lot more days than you thought, or that your like impression of how well you were doing shows. So the data was like, let's say like one week I had a pretty bad week and I missed like half of the things. And so in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I'm generally like doing it. And really what the data is showing is like, you're not really doing it. You're doing it like 50% of the time. This is why you're not seeing the results that you want to see. And another way that I've been thinking about it is for those things that I do every day, there's 7 days in a week. And so if I want to hit 85%, that's 6 out of 7 days. That means that I can only have like one bad day a week to really hit that standard of excellence or to really push myself to achieve what I have the potential to achieve. Another kind of mistake I made, I think I must have missed this in the book, but I was tracking my 2 goal areas together. So I have 2 goal areas, and at the end of the week, I would give myself a weekly score that combined both my YouTube goal of, posting 12 videos in 12 weeks and my healthy lifestyle goal. And so I was really good at hitting everything for my YouTube. Like I would basically be like 100% on that one. But then my healthy lifestyle goal, let's say, was like at 60%. And so when I combine them, the average is like 80%. And so at the end of the week, I'd be like, okay, good, 80%. But in reality, I was getting 100% in one area and 60% in another goal area. And so I realized that I had made a mistake and I needed to track my goals separately so that I could have that clarity and see like, okay, I'm doing great in one area, but in the other area, I'm only hitting 60% and the authors recommend hitting 85. So it's given me a lot of feedback as far as how well I'm actually doing in the process. So I guess that leads into the biggest takeaway for me so far in using this system is that tracking what I am and am not doing has given me a lot of clarity on what is happening in reality versus my general impression or my general sense of how well and how consistently I'm actually implementing things. And it's given me a lot of clarity on, feeling like I'm doing it. I have the occasional day where I don't, but it's given me a lot of clarity that those occasional days that I don't can be more often than not if I'm not careful about it, which leads into my second takeaway, which is that I need to be really intentional, which can be kind of annoying because it's so much work to like be consciously focusing on your goals all the time and tracking everything. I get it. It's kind of annoying, but that's also what it takes to make habit change, to create these changes in your life. You're doing something new and different. So of course it's kind of uncomfortable and you also need to put a lot of focus on it because it's not a habit yet. And so those are my 2 big takeaways, is that the tracking has given me a lot of clarity and it's made me realize that I need to be very intentional while I'm building a new habit and a new lifestyle. Another thing that I've taken away from this is that for me personally, it is way more motivating to have the least amount of to-do list items on your weekly plan as possible. So if I have 2 goal areas, ideally I could have like 2 checkboxes per day. Like that would be great because that's really easy to hit. When you get into like 5 to 7 things to do every day, it's more likely that you're going to miss one of them. And then that's a little bit demotivating. So really paring down my to-do list to what is the absolute essential things that will make this happen and then going from there and using the shortest list possible because it's way easier to hit 2 items than like 7. Okay, this video has ended up being very long. I know a lot of my videos can go long, and this one is going to be a doozy, but there's so much in this book. The system is really jam-packed, and I have really enjoyed using it so far, and I hope that I have shared with you how you can get started on your own 12-week plan. And like I said, I really recommend getting your hands on a copy first so that you can really digest it and hear the way that the authors talk about things and really get that like mindset download so that you can really put on your big girl or big boy pants and really step into that accountability and ownership of your own actions. And you can hear all the stuff that I didn't include in this video that is in this book. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you've taken something away from it. Let me know if you decide to try the 12-week year and how it goes for you. And if you did like the video, please give it a big thumbs up. I'd appreciate that support. And if you're into this type of content, then consider subscribing for weekly videos like this. And with that, I will see you next week.